My name is William Marsh. I'm the Director of Business Development with Premier Research Labs, and I am so honored to be with you all here today with David Cope. He is the founder of Beyond Remission. And as our content this month has really been centered on emotional health and heart health, I couldn't actually think of a better person to bring on and a better organization to start really our foray into what is something that's been very near and dear to our heart as an organization, and I know to all of us as individuals and people, which is this concept of emotional medicine and emotional health and emotional healing, which Beyond Remission is an organization that is founded on such a beautiful premise of how the emotional body and the emotional traumas can really be what is the root causative factor for chronic disease. And so, David, I'm so excited to have you on this conversational piece for our audience. And if you wouldn't mind, take some time to introduce yourself and Beyond Remission, beyond what I just kind of did with that little bit of an introduction.
Yeah, thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity to sharing this amazing new era that we're entering into with emotional medicine. My background is that I've been a businessman all my life. And just so everybody's clear, I like to tell the story that my freshman year in college, I went to the University of Vermont and I did pre-med. And my first semester, I flunked chemistry. First time I flunked anything in my life. So I knew that direction. Then going into chemistry and biology wasn't my strength. So I ended up going into the business and was a businessman all my life. And I was a real estate developer in the 80s. Moved to Colorado in the 90s. Had an oil recycling company. So very grounded in entrepreneurship, and emotional medicine really started the concept and creation of emotional medicine started in around 1990 when my wife came to me. I was married and had 4 kids and said, "David, I want a divorce." I thought I'd be married the rest of my life, and I was crushed because my biggest love in my life was being a dad, and I wouldn't be able to wake up with my kids anymore. And I was always healthy all my life, and after my divorce, I started getting chronic illnesses. My immune system got weak. I started having severe food allergies. I was taking 3 or 4 naps a day, and I didn't understand what was happening to me because I was always been healthy. So I went to a doctor he did blood tests, and he said, "David, we can't find anything wrong with you." And I said, "Well, there has to be. I'm an emotional wreck, depressed, I have anxiety, but I feel the bottom of my life, and I'm sleeping and I have food allergies." And the doctor just said, "I'm sorry, we can't find anything wrong with you." And it was the first time I realized what a chronic illness was, because I thought you go to a doctor and the doctor you get better. As a kid, you have an ear infection or you have strep throat, you go to the doctor and you get better. So I thought I go to the doctor and he'll tell me what to do to get better. So it taught me the first time what a chronic illness is. A chronic illness is an illness or disease that doctors have no known cure for. They don't know how to solve the problem of what's causing the chronic illness. That's why it's called chronic, meaning it doesn't go away and it will stay for the rest of your life. So being a businessman and somebody that has been healthy all my life, I didn't want to be a victim to my divorce, and I wanted to find a way out of my health experience. I was really determined. I tried many different alternative methods. I was at the time, I was also going through a spiritual revolution, and so I was very open to many different modalities. And after trying so many different things, nothing worked. I figured I better figure out this on my own. I was reading at the time Candace Pert's book, Molecules of Emotion, and it spoke to me that she said that every illness or disease has an emotional component. So it was very obvious to me that my emotional state was a mess. and and so I also knew that my external world was a reflection of my internal world. I in my divorce, I lost all my money. I was sick. My external world was telling me my internal state was a was was not healthy. So something helped me understand what I had to do to resolve my emotional state so that I could get out of the internal emotional turmoil I was in and to get my health back. And I was able to realize that I was blaming my wife for my situation. And when I switched to taking responsibility and what did I learn and grow from, and how could I learn and grow from this, realizing that what I was really experiencing was an experience of grief and loss. And the loss of my life as a dad, waking up with my kids, it was a major loss in my life. And so by by taking the perspective of what did I learn and how can I grow from this, I was able to heal the the emotional distress of the grief. My body slowly started healing and I got better quite rapidly. And being an entrepreneur, I said, gee, if I can do this for me, I'm that I can do this for other people. So slowly I started working with other individuals who had chronic illnesses, mostly mystery illnesses, people who've been to doctors and nobody could help them. And I started using processes that have evolved, but helping individuals with chronic illnesses, autoimmune diseases, become healthy again by resolving their internal emotional state created by their experience of their life, most often a loss of grief, which is very stressful and taxing on our bodies. And not only in this time period did I help people overcome and heal from chronic illness and autoimmune disease, I also created grieffree.org, which was a nonprofit organization that taught therapists how to resolve grief and loss so people could heal from the pain. That was another part that was the experience of learning that my divorce was a loss and that therapists in our grief and loss community doesn't know how to heal the pain of loss. They believe that the pain of a loss is something you have for the rest of your life and you manage and cope with it. But I was able to, because of the attachments that I created as a dad, I learned how to resolve those and have really gained a lot of insight into grief and loss, which is also part of what creates our emotional state and creates our body to create chronic illnesses and autoimmune diseases. So that's basically that happened about 18 years ago. And fast forward, there's a lot of evolutions to the processes that I use to heal a person's emotional state so body could do its natural healing and people can become healthy again. And it's involved because as a businessman, I knew I had to be able to make it scalable. At first, I thought, one-on-one work with individuals was the best. And then COVID was a gift because it forced us and me to put everything online so we could use Zoom. And we really evolved into realizing when we did one-on-one work we call ourselves teachers and students because we're an educational company, Beyond Remission. And we realized that a student, a patient can become dependent on the teacher, the therapist, or the doctor, and believes that the doctor or the process is what heals them. So by doing an online educational program and have it be self-guided, which we evolved into, which is what Beyond Remission is, it really empowered the individual to take back their power from the teacher, from the doctor, from the therapist, and to realize I'm the one that's doing the healing. It's me. And it's really been very rewarding and exciting to see the progress and the magic of emotional medicine come through Beyond Remission as online educational programs.
So exciting. I just, society and our culture and, the physicians that we serve here at Premier, we have really good products and, our quality around the manufacturer is airtight and, the protocols that we build, there's a lot of education around the biochemistry of the nutrition that we provide. But what's really cool is our physicians and society as a whole is waking up to this concept of you can take all the nutrition in the world. You can have the most lavish lifestyle. You can have all the money in the world. And yeah, some people say money can buy happiness, but truly that doesn't heal the wounds that
That's
you're
right.
dealing with. And, there's such core facets to, emotional patterning that, you have a wound and then you have a conditioned response that you're kind of carrying every day, whether that's very overt or
Right.
or subvert. So, talk to, there may be some physicians that, they probably could make the logical connection that, hey, yeah, if your body is in a grief state, you're going to have metabolic dysfunction that can plague the immune system. But could you maybe allude to that a little bit more as to some key mechanisms, that really drive the kind of the, if you're looking at a health angle, why there's dysfunction in the body when
Sure.
there is such a grief burden in the
Yeah.
body?
So I think emotional medicine really solves the problem of how do we get the body to be able to heal and self-repair all on its own? Because every physician, doctor knows that the body has a capacity. So why is it that we can't get the body to permanently heal all on its own? So Beyond Remission really says a lot. Right now, with most physicians and nutritionists or functional medicine, the goal is to get a person into remission. How do I get my patient into remission so their symptoms are, you know, not causing difficulty and can be managed in a way that it doesn't disrupt a person's life? But remission is not healing. It's not healthy. You still have the condition, and the problem is most physicians and functional medicine doctors, there's something called flare-ups
Mm.
that can disrupt the remission and cause the person to have to go back in and start all over again with the protocols. And so the beauty of what emotional medicine does is that it really is the process that allows the body to naturally heal and self-repair without the use of medication, supplements, diets, mind body meditation, or any um, integrative practices. So, how can the body do all of this all by its own naturally? And the beauty of emotional medicine is that's what emotional medicine does. And what emotional medicine understands is that our emotions drive our physical body. So an easy way to understand that from a more of a scientific biological perspective is understanding that how we feel about ourselves, our emotional state, creates the lens in which we interact with the world.
Mm.
If we have an unhealthy internal turmoil, emotional state, we respond to life with that lens, and life becomes feeling we're not in control. Things are happening to us. We in that what happens is that we begin to create stressors in our life because we don't know how to interact with life because we think it's happening to us. And over time, these stressors build and build. There's something called the allostatic load. And the allostatic load tells us over time, with the wear and tear of the body, it takes a toll on the body. And eventually there's a tipping point. And especially with chronic illnesses and autoimmune diseases, if you go back 6 months before the symptoms start of an autoimmune or chronic illness, you'll find a stressor that is usually a grief and loss experience that overloaded the immune system and the functioning of the body and caused the immune system to collapse. And what happens is this intense emotional experience, mostly caused by grief and loss, causes the fight and flight mechanism in the sympathetic nervous system to stay chronically turned on. So the problem why we can't get the body to naturally heal and self-repair is because it's stuck in fight or flight in the sympathetic nervous system, because the body doesn't know the difference between a physical threat, which fight or flight is supposed to be used for, and an emotional threat. And the fight or flight is supposed to be on for about 2 hours and supposed to turn off. But when it's chronically activated, the cortisol that's released in the fight or flight, that's only supposed to be on for a couple hours, and the stress hormones that are released wreak havoc in the body and disrupt the biochemistry of the body. So the question is, how do you turn off the chronically activated fight or flight mechanism that's activated by a stress response or emotional response in life? And that's where emotional medicine comes in, and Beyond Remission. And what we do in Beyond Remission is we create the psychological shift in a person. Beyond Remission is a psychological approach to medicine, and where we create the psychological shift that allows the body in fight or flight no longer to perceive life as a threat. The fight or flight mechanism turns off. The biochemistry reestablishes itself. The body goes out of the sympathetic into the parasympathetic nervous system, where downregulation occurs, and the body naturally goes back to heal and self-repair and enter homeostasis. So that's the reason why we have to have so many supplements and food protocols and mind body intervention is because we're stuck in fight or flight, and we're trying to manage the symptoms that are created by the chronically activated fight or flight that is disrupting, flooding the body with cortisol and hormones, stress hormones. So everything that we're doing in what traditional medicine and functional and nutrition all is trying to what we call symptom management. Managing the symptom, but never getting to the root cause. Well, some say, functional medicine will say, well, we work on the root causes. Well, there can't be root causes. That means there's multiple causes. And the problem with working with multiple causes is it's a complex biochemistry work that every individual is unique, and you have to create these patient-centered plans that have to keep being adapted. But the beauty of emotional medicine is it's universal. Every human being is created biologically the same. And when you turn off the fight or flight mechanism, the body naturally heals and self-repairs. And So rather than it being patient-centered, every patient has to have a unique uh, blood. You have to do individual testing. You have to know the history. It has to be patient centered. You have to monitor it. Actually, with Beyond Remission, because it's emotional medicine, it's universal. Every person that goes through is a human being with the same biology, and every human being fight or flight mechanism can be turned off with emotional medicine by making the psychological shift that the program does. And it's quite fascinating. So you don't have to tailor the program to the individual. While it's not meant to be clear, emotional medicine and Beyond Remission isn't meant for every person, and it isn't the panacea for everything. Because not every person is drawn to emotional medicine, and many people still believe in Western medicine, and some people um, also we have to work with people that are emotionally stable and are, you know, so it isn't for everybody, but it is a universal in its practice. So I always thought, what's the $1 million question is how do you turn off the chronically activated fight or flight? Mm-hmm. And emotional medicine is the singular solution. I call it the singular root cause of all chronic illnesses and autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo kind of some of the points that you made. I think, where we're at in society is a society that is chronically stressed, right? And,
yes.
Chronically constricted in their experience and, how they're walking through the world. And, whether there's facets to where some people just naturally from a predisposition, they're less emotional than other people, right?
Exactly.
There's people that are very even keeled. There's people that are huge. They're emotional waves every moment of every day, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's right. That's just who you are as an individual.
That's right.
And I think there's an embracing of that.
Yeah.
But where I do believe, and you kind of echoed some points, I would kind of say that there is extreme value, in wherever a physician or a practitioner may be to really educate themselves on the facet of what is emotional health and emotional wisdom, right? And the ability for, you to, because we're all human and we all engage with emotions as humans. So even if you're an even keel person, having that emotional wisdom can help you have greater awareness around how you can whether support others through their grief or support yourself or create space for yourself. That all is that maturation and just more of a healthy aptitude to how you kind of walk through the world. My question, I guess, for you, and this, there's a lot. I'm really excited to get into this topic, just because I'm so passionate about it. I feel like it's one of the core aspects for my healing journey, just like you shared, in my health journey, is really understanding emotions and, capital C consciousness is something that I love to just kind of dive into. But
that capital C word is been very much part of my journey too.
Yeah, it's so fun, right? It's just so rich. And I guess what I would love a question that's kind of off the cuff is, a lot of people define grief as, something that is horrendously tragic, right? I mean, you can think of, losing a loved one. You can think of, your divorce, right? You can think of this just experience that's heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
Would you argue that grief actually manifests itself in smaller ways in our everyday moment by moment existence?
Well, let me see if I can answer the first part of it. How we respond to grief is a choice. The degree to which we perceive grief and loss as painful and traumatic is a choice. So I often use, in our grief program, we use an example of these two young men who were in a car accident. The parents died, and they both became paraplegics. Can't think of a much more traumatic experience than being in a car accident. Your parents die, and both brothers become paraplegic. Well, the story that they true story that they lead is they decided that they didn't want this to destroy them, and they used this to grow into better people and learn from the experience, and they became Olympic champions on the basketball court in wheelchairs. So that story, it tells me that how I experience grief is a choice. And it's really fundamental to emotional medicine and emotional awareness, is that I can either be a victim to life and believe that my life is created by my circumstances, or I can be empowered by my life and say my life is created by my choices. And these young men decided that in spite of the traumatic nature, they wanted to grow and learn from it and use it to become better people. And while I'm sure that there was great sadness and loss of their parents and being paraplegic, but they turned this traumatic event into something that made them grow and learn. And it's what that does is, well, that's an extreme case of grief and loss. What we don't understand as humans is that grief and loss is the most natural, normal experience as humans has. And we go through our life continually experiencing grief and loss. And it could be from moment to moment, but from year to year, our life is filled with grief and loss. It could be as simple as a young child, you might be been the only child, and your parents have a sibling, and you no longer get the attention of the parents, and so that's a loss from being a single child to sharing. Or it could be the first time your date in high school breaks up with you, or grief and loss could be when your grandfather dies or your dog dies. And what we realize is that if you ask 100 people, 99 of them will share similar experience of grief and loss, and we all go through the same thing, but nobody's ever taught us that grief and loss is normal and part of life. So if grief and loss is normal and part of life, why would we traumatize it? Why should we normalize it? So one of the key things that I've learned is to normalize grief and loss, and it's our choice of how we respond to it. Try to think of, there's a book written by the gentleman who was in a concentration camp. My search for meaning and purpose. I can't think of his name. It'll come to me, but he said between a stimuli and a response, there's a gap. And in that gap, I have a choice to how I respond to my stimuli, which is grief and loss. There's a gap. And how I respond to my grief and loss is there's a me that can choose to respond. And most people don't realize there's a me in there that has the choice to determine how we respond. And unfortunately, our society is very geared and has become even, everything now is trauma. And it makes us really, or traumatic. It makes us very weak, spiritually weak and emotionally weak, when we are taught by our society and therapists and culture that things are traumatic. We need to be resilient in life. Resilience is what creates health and vitality. If we believe that everyday normal losses, like parents dying, or children having an alcoholic parent, or having your parents divorce, or your parent, those are all considered traumatic experience now. It really weakens us emotionally, so we don't have the capacity to be resilient. And resilience is really an important characteristic for health and vitality, meaning the ability to bounce back. Resilience is the ability to bounce back into times of stress. And that's a very powerful, healthy concept to develop. And traumatizing us, grief and loss, weakens us emotionally. And it also weakens our immune system. Resilience, in going through life, facing our challenges and our fears, getting out of our comfort zone, strengthens our immune system and empowers us because it makes us feel good. Our immune system is a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. The better we feel about ourselves, the stronger our immune system. Happy people, well-adjusted people are healthy, regardless of whether they're on supplements or exercising. There's a beautiful study called the Rosetta study. It was done 50 years ago. Italian immigrants came over from Italy, and a doctor nearby was finding out that they weren't dying of heart disease, and he did a study, a 50-year study on this group of Italians and why they weren't getting heart disease, and he found it is because of the community that people felt. And these Italians they'd inhale their stogies. They'd eat meatballs made of lard. They'd work in the shale mines and breathe in these toxins, and they were healthy. So that's the basis of emotional medicine. If I feel good about myself and feel secure and confident myself, my body reflects that. And that's why I love the Rosetta study, because it tells us it's not the environment that creates our health. It's us in our reaction to our emotional ability to react in a healthy way and feeling good about ourselves to our environment. So, all this we get, for Christmas, my daughter gave me glass Tupperware and said, "Don't put your in the microwave your plastic. There's microplastics, and it's dangerous for your health." And I think about, oh my God, I would be so scared to live if I thought about all the environmental toxins that could ruin my health. But the Rosetta study says no, it's those things. Our body is made, the kidneys and the systems, to get rid of toxins, and yes, all of we can support it, but if these Italian immigrants can work in the shale mines and breathe in all that shale dust, eat lard and inhale stogies, and they're healthy. While it doesn't mean we shouldn't take supplements and exercise, and because it shows we care about ourselves, that it's not the environmental toxins that are making us unhealthy. It's our emotional state and how we interact with the world is what I've learned for myself. So, does grief and loss happen in any moment? Losses happen every day. You never know when there's an acute stressor that happens. That can trigger your emotional responses. And the key is to have self-awareness to that internal trigger, and how do I respond? Like, I'm sorry, I'll think of that author's name. Between a stimuli and a response, there's a gap. And in that gap, I have a choice of how I respond to it. And that's to me, is very empowering in how I can deal emotionally with my life and myself and how I interact with the world.
I have
Viktor Frankl.
Dr. Frankl, was that it?
Viktor Frankl was the one that's, yes.
If for everybody listening, they'll have to go search it if they haven't read it. But I would echo again, in my experience, it's that dilation, that as we mature in our path and we can start to see more of ourselves and feel more of ourselves and understand, how our bodies, maybe responding to the world, and then the appropriate response to move through next. This, every time we take a little bit maybe of a deeper inhale rather than clenching, right?
Yeah.
We're able to maybe really feel what is the appropriate direction to move in. So, we're I think emotional wisdom is about making the right choices in life that allow you to not have that layering effect of like, you're making the wrong choices. So you have a due date that was too close, and
That's
or now
right.
you made too many promises to somebody you can't keep, or, and those are, to me, I would echo, trauma comes in forms that isn't necessarily traumatic, but it is stressful to the body and the
Exactly.
psyche.
Yep.
And, it could be the expectation of, oh, I'm going to get to work
That's
on
right.
time and I don't get
That's
to work
right.
on time, or, oh, somebody's going to smile at me at the office and they
That's
don't,
right.
or, oh,
All
I'm
of
going to get it.
those things.
All those things are like, they add up. And I think that's where, empowering awareness around, strategies and ways that you can move through the world to have greater awareness to deburden more effectively or create more space more effectively. That's just going to help you be more of you every day,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Um, and so, talk to me a little bit about, so, Beyond Remission, it's had a lot of chapters, it sounds like, since, you started it, you had your journey, you saw the potential of it. Talk to us a little bit more about where it's at today, and as a
Okay.
health professional that's interested in, taking their steps. Maybe they're already familiar with emotional wellness. Maybe they're a yogi or yogini like myself, and they're on their path, but they'd like to be a little bit more nuanced in kind of, strategies and approaches to emotional medicine. What does Beyond Remission do, and what do you offer?
Well, Beyond Remission are online educational programs. It's a 13-week program of pre-recorded videos that provide, modules that students watch once a week and have homework assignments that are teaching students the manual of life that their parents and society never taught them, so that they can understand that how they respond to life and the stressors and how we respond to the stress is a choice. And in this 13-week they make this psychological shift that I call it the locus of control. Is a psychological term that's very commonly understood. When we have an external locus of control, we believe that life is happening and I'm not in control of my emotional state. Uh, People with chronic illnesses and autoimmune diseases have an external locus of control, and they believe that the things are happening to them. An internal locus of control is what you were talking about, Will, is there's a me inside of me that is in control of how I respond to life. The more that I have self-awareness, that I have control over how I respond, and then I have an internal locus of control. The shift from the external locus of control to internal locus of control is what the psychological shift turns off the fight or flight mechanism, because now the person is empowered. The fight or flight no longer perceives itself and chronically stressed, and so this in this 13-week program, a person will exit the sympathetic and enter the parasympathetic, where the body will naturally heal and self-repair all on its own, without supplements, without medication, without restrictive food diets, without blood work or integrative medicine practices or mind-body meditation, mindfulness. And it goes into a state we call permanent healing. And that's why it's called Beyond Remission. Beyond Remission is permanent healing, meaning the people who take the Beyond Remission, who have chronic illnesses and autoimmune diseases, they in the parasympathetic, they have permanent healing. So eventually, when they go to the doctors to have their lab tests, they no longer have the disease. Their body has entered homeostasis, and now the disease no longer exists. So the beauty of emotional medicine is it introduces the concept of permanent healing rather than symptom management or remission as the ultimate goal. Permanent healing means that the person no longer has the disease or illness and they're healthy, and that they do not need supplements or any food diet to maintain in permanent healing. So in Beyond Remission, our students enter the parasympathetic nervous system, and eventually over time, and sometimes as quick as a few months, and others symptoms and diseases may take 6 months to a year, but typically in 6 months, most symptoms and chronic illnesses and autoimmune diseases are permanently gone, and the person can go back to a normal, healthy life, eating normal, healthy foods, even, you know, um, gluten, and you can, eat normal foods because you're healthy. Doesn't mean you don't eat healthy and exercise to support your body, but you don't have to take supplements to maintain the state of permanent healing. The body does that naturally. So that's the beauty of Beyond Remission is this novel concept of permanent healing. Beyond Remission means remission shouldn't be our goal, which means to put the body in a state where the symptoms no longer are affecting the person, but the disease is still in the person and can be activated through flare-ups, but get to the place where there's permanent healing. And emotional medicine introduces this new era of permanent healing where a person can be in the parasympathetic nervous system and need nothing other than a healthy person to maintain their health.
Yeah, I think emotional homeostasis, as you kind of coined it, and finding that, and I mean, it truly empowers you to, I guess, the body and the mind. I mean, it's allowing for the greatest level of efficiency in the body, right?
Exactly.
And everything's moving seamlessly.
Yeah, and that's our natural state is homeostasis. So how emotional medicine gets the body back into homeostasis so a person becomes healthy. And the beauty of staying healthy is you don't have to do like meditate every morning, and you don't have to, do these practices. You actually, in Beyond Remission, you're learning how to respond to life in a way that you can have confidence that you won't trigger the fight or flight mechanism again, and what caused it, so that we call it in a simple way, building resilience. How do you build resilience? So when you face grief, when you face a stressor, that you're able to bounce back. And so resilience, while it's not a concept that we teach in the program, really is what we want to build to strengthen our immune system and to create a healthy body is resilience. Is ability to bounce back, to go out into life, to face our life's challenges, not to hide in a bubble and stay in our comfort zone, to grow and learn and embrace life as an opportunity to get to know and express ourselves in life. And in that, it builds a healthy response to life and creates the natural way we were made, which is resilience, to be adaptive to. I mean, think about, I just read a book about 1776 when we fought the independence from England. And can you imagine the settlers coming from Britain and in other European countries settle in the United States at that time? How resilient they had to be to build the huts and find the food and weather the storm. I mean, think of how resilient that we are naturally capable of. And now, unfortunately, our society has created us to be emotional wimps. And we've lost the concept of embracing loss and to grow and learn in life and build emotional resilience.
I'm not sure if everybody on the call wants to listen to that, hear this, but I think in total, there's a lot of reasons why some big players, in the world would like the world to be a little bit more fearful and a little bit more traumatized. It sells in a lot of ways, right? You can you seek out more dopamine, right, to counter balance, the trauma you're experiencing, and that can come in processed food forms of processed food and entertainment and addictions that aren't serving vices,
That's right. Yep.
And so, yeah, it's it's interesting as we as a society start to understand our innate psyche, and we start to move towards hopefully a deepening of emotional awareness as a society.
That's right.
I believe industry and what drives the world will change dramatically. So at the core of it, it comes with emotional maturation.
That's right.
And this is what y'all are all about, which I think is just
That's a good way of putting it.
yeah.
Emotional maturation. Yeah.
It's really fun. Well, I know this will have. I think there's just so much to talk about here, and we could. I feel like
we just gave an introduction. There's so much more and exciting things that emotional medicine has opened up that we can discuss that I think your listeners would find very intriguing and find answers that they've been looking for that I think we can talk about lots of wonderful, intriguing and deep concepts.
Yeah. Well, this is only the seed, right? To talk about more. And, we here at Premier Research Labs, we do what's called emotional repolarization therapy, which will, I think, go right into what y'all certification, your coursework with Beyond Remission. And if I recall correctly, you actually offer the opportunity for a practitioner themselves to go through the course, and then you actually can offer the practitioner to refer their clients to the coursework as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have there's two options. We're actually licensing in an intellectual property agreement that doctors and practices can offer our Beyond Remission to their patients. And also we have a referral program. If a doctor doesn't want to offer it in their practice, if they have patients that are struggling to get better, chronic illnesses and autoimmune diseases, we have a referral program set up that they could send their patients to us, and we see if they're a good fit. And if they're a good fit for our program, we have an extraordinary success rate, as high as 75 to 100% success rate in students going through our program who enter into the parasympathetic nervous system and have permanent healing. And also, we've been doing this for 18 years, so it's been very refined. We'd love to partner with different doctors and practices.
Well, I believe you found a network here at Premier that I think would be very interested in diving into everything you have to offer. And, the intention here is, like I said, this is a seed that I believe will root into further conversations and content. So, David, I just want to say thank you so much for the time today. And then I know we will be sharing some links to get them started, but just on this call, where would you direct them to go if they're interested in getting the coursework?
Let's see. Beyond-remission.com.
Okay.
Beyond-remission.com. There's a video there that talks about everything we do and how to get in touch with us if they're interested in being involved with emotional medicine and Beyond Remission.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, David. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And for all those listening, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back with future content with Beyond Remission, and we hope that all of you continue your awareness, whether that's in nutrition, emotional health, spiritual health, and beyond, as you all are the healers of our global community, and your health has to come first, right? If we're not prioritizing our own health, then we can't necessarily help others, right? We got to have space to take on the heart and the love of others. So, anyways, blessings to you all, and we look forward to future conversations in the near future.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate the opportunity.